So Mental Health Monday is back. Thank you once again for downloading the podcast. Really appreciate that. And thank you to everybody who's been supporting our Iron Men campaign. When it launched on World Suicide Prevention Day, we got a huge response on social media. Thank you to everybody who supported what we've done, those images of the guys, and of course the stories that they shared as part of Friday's edition of Mental Health Monday. Of course, it's not just about guys telling their stories, in that I think it normalizes that conversation, and I think what it does as well is it allows other guys to almost hear ways that they might be able to express their own feelings. But of course, when guys do reach out, and when women reach out, they need to reach out to services and organisations who understand what they're going through, that are hopefully based within their own communities as well, and can put them on a different path. So an important part 2 now of this week's Mental Health Monday special, which now focuses on those organisations that are available. Many of them joined us down at the beach at Crosby for our Iron Men special, but there are many more available. Full signposting on the radiocity.co.uk news article which accompanies this week's edition of Mental Health Monday. I'll put a link in the podcast feed there. But let's head back to Crosby Beach for part 2 of this week's Mental Health Monday. Welcome to part 2 of our Iron Men special from Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. Last week's edition was absolutely fascinating as we met a load of guys down at the Iron Men at Crosby, Anthony Gormley's another place, recreated those images as well. If you head onto the website, but also if you check out the links on social media, you can see some of those images and the video that we created. We talk about Iron Men though, and their incredible stories, the incredible bravery around talking through their stories. We're going to meet this week some of those organisations who've been there. A round of applause for our organisations. So one of the things I've noticed when we speak to the guys and we talk about the Iron Men is actually a lot of the organisations that they've made connections with. When we heard from Tom Davis, it was a connection with his auntie that was the real difference. When we heard from Dan, connections with James's place and people like Jane Boland, who we're going to speak to. Now, Jane, I'm not going to call you an Iron Lady because that might be an inappropriate thing to do. We heard Dan's testimony, if you like, for the work that you do as well. So much focus is on men, isn't it, when we talk about suicide, because the fact 3/4 of men who die, 3/4 of people who die by suicide are men. Yet the numbers about women having suicidal thoughts and attempting suicide are just as high, if not higher, in regard to women as well. And that's something I guess we've got to be mindful of. When we talk about men speaking out, though, it seems like this taboo. This taboo which we're trying to smash, that we're trying to break. And it's not something you're going to go through, with a tractor. You've got to chip away. Yeah. But I really feel like in the last few years that chipping away is starting to work. And actually an organisation like James's Place, connecting with particularly working class men, is something which is happening now in a way which probably wasn't happening 5 years ago, not that James's Place existed there.
Yeah, I think that it's gone. I mean, I hope that our message has gone from like you need help to somebody like Dan or the other guys who've been part of like an outreach campaign that all, I think a few of the organisations here, where it's like, I was struggling, I didn't know what was happening, and then I got help, you can too. So I think the more men and women, because we've had a daughter who talked about supporting her dad through his suicidal crisis, the more people who we as organisations can get to share their story, the more those barriers are chipped away. And if nothing else, it's like, I was struggling, I didn't know what to do, but I got help, and now I feel better. And that story of hope just needs to be reiterated. There is hope there. You can feel better than this. The gentleman, I was here when you were talking to the gentleman last week, and one of the things that I often think about when I'm working with men who are in that suicidal crisis is they've got to a point where it feels like they're in like a room or where all the doors have closed one by one, and the only one that's left open has got a label of suicide on it. And what we try and do at James's Place, and what they do at the Martin Gallia Project, and what Sean's place does, and what Lily's place do, and what they do at the Life Rooms, is we try and show men that there are doors that they can open. There are lots of doors, and for some those doors are about footy therapy and talking to other fellas, and for some it may be an inpatient admission, and for some it may be coming to James's Place. But there are lots of doors available to you, and there is hope behind all of them.
Absolutely, and I don't want to talk about individuals because, of course, they've had their own individual journey. But there are men alive today because of conversations you've had with them. You have saved lives. You are saving lives. That's clinically provable, but also anecdotally, people say you're absolutely fabulous as well. What a job to have! What a responsibility to take on! But what a difference you're making.
Yeah, I mean, we know that when, we can get men in our centre, and if they are able to participate in our intervention, we know that we make a difference for them. And there are some men who will tell you that they are alive because of us. And there were men who are alive because of the work that Lily's done and because of the work that Mark and the guys over at the Life Room has done. It's not particularly easy to think about mental health in terms of saving lives, and I think often when people think about mental health, they don't really think about us being as lifesavers, or that's usually ambulance drivers or firemen and things. But there are conversations probably happening right now, where people across the country are opening those doors for somebody who's in a suicidal crisis and saying, look, let's shut the suicide door, let's open this one, let's open this door to hope that will get you through and will get you feeling better.
Yeah, absolutely. Just by the way, that normally I'd be looking at a studio clock and thinking, right, what time I need to wrap up, but literally the sun is setting. It's a very romantic edition of Mental Health Monday, I've got to say. Quite the occasion. I think we've got about 10 minutes. I mentioned the Life Rooms there, talking about opening doors, and the Life Rooms model is about opening those doors. Mark's with us from the Life Rooms. You've got bases right across the Merseyside region, and that's your policy, isn't it? It's about getting people in their environments where they're comfortable, colleges and libraries and high streets, to be able to have those conversations. And again, it's about finding those opportunities, and you're finding that working through the Life Rooms and the work you do at Merseycare.
Most definitely, yeah. And what you've just said there about finding different environments, we're in the heart of the community. So we've got Walton Library, you said, on the High Street, we're right on Lord Street in Southport, and also the work that we're doing with Newbird College. It's that preventable treatment, stopping people becoming unwell before. There's a big focus on that. I think people think because Life Rooms is run by Merseycare NHS, we're a clinical organisation, but we're not. Anyone's welcome. You don't need a diagnosis. We just encourage anyone to come and join us and take part in what we offer, and that could be just social interactions, just mental well-being, physical health, social prescribing. There's so much on offer there, and I'm with a few of the guys today who've actually come through our service and now actually work for Merseycare and the Life Rooms.
I was going to say, just introduce yourself for us.
Yeah, so my name's Dan, and I work for the Early Intervention and Psychosis team at Merseycare. But like Mark just said, I was a suicide survivor, I suppose, and found the Life Rooms after my suicide attempts, and it was what made the change for me. I had gone through years of therapies and all different types of stuff, but for me it was sitting in a room with other people who were feeling the same way I was feeling and explaining something and seeing them nod and say, yeah, that's me too. And that was more powerful to me than any therapy session I'd had or any talking therapy. And that's what Life Rooms does. It's inclusive, it makes you feel part of something. And I started then volunteering through Life Rooms, which led to me actually working for Merseycare. And now I use my lived experience from my own suicidal history to help other people who are going through similar sorts of things. And that's what Life Rooms does. It gives you that sense of hope and opens that door into a new career and a new lifestyle for yourself.
And obviously they saw the sort of the value in you in terms of what you could bring and your lived experience. Is that sort of a shared experience? And it's actually not really something that we've touched on yet. That I mentioned it right at the start. 1 in 5 people will experience suicidal thoughts at some point in their life. 1 in 15 people will actually attempt suicide as well. So actually, where people feel isolated and alone in their feelings, almost the opposite is true. It's a relatively common thing, but the taboo and the stigma, I guess, is there that stops people talking about it. And I guess the Life Rooms opens those doors literally and creates those environments where people don't feel like they're on their own and they're lonely and they're the only person in the world, because they're part of a community and they've got people who can literally put their arms around an individual.
Yeah, I mean, I had my own. My name's Tom. I had my own mental health crisis about 4 years ago now, and started volunteering with the Life Rooms, having been a service user myself. And I think that inclusivity and that understanding in a room amongst sort of like-minded people, I found that I'd never experienced that before. And then my journey was I became a volunteer, and now a staff member, and I deliver sessions at the at the front of the class. And I still have my bad days and my good days, and you know, we talk about that in the classroom, and you know, it's just a wonderful place to work and be, and it's still therapeutic to me as well.
And actually great that you can have those conversations and say, actually, I'm having a really down day today, knowing that you're in an environment where people have got your best interests at heart and actually know how you can take a step away from those feelings.
Absolutely, and you know, it's not just the mental health sessions that we do. We've got the creative sessions. We're in partnership with the Philharmonic, the Playhouse, all of these wonderful organisations that, you know, it's all about well-being, isn't it? So we can talk about mental health, we can talk about art, poetry, music. It's just a fabulous place to come.
Absolutely. Let's bring the Martin Gallier project on board, who got mentioned before. We've got two of the team here now. Jess Gallier, who's been on the programme, isn't with us today, but sent some able deputies as well. We talk about the numbers of people who sort of come through your doors. You guys have had many hundreds of people coming through the doors as well, which just goes to show the need that is out there, but also the fact that you guys are essentially on a high street that you can walk in. The connection is there. That's so important, isn't it, that people think, I need help, I can step onto my high street and get it.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, we don't believe in waiting lists at the Martin Gallier project, so we genuinely do take in anyone that is experiencing suicidal crisis. As someone who has experienced mental health issues myself and has attempted suicide, it was quite hard to actually get the help that I needed and the support at that particular time, especially it happened when I was quite young too. So at the Martin Gallier project, we are looking for pretty much anyone that does need that support and doesn't, obviously is in crisis and cannot wait that long.
Absolutely. I've talked often about the normalisation of mental health services. Actually, Life Room's a good example of it because it's within those settings as well. But I think there's a space on every high street, isn't there, almost for a centre like your own, where you can step in and go, actually, I've been having these feelings, can I talk to somebody about it? You guys straight away know exactly what conversations to have, and you can, of course, put somebody on a different path.
Yeah, I think for us, it's all about being not only the support network that people need and that we think is lacking, in a sense, but it's about being there in the community and really getting involved with our area, with also areas in Liverpool, to let people know that we are there, and if you are struggling, you can drop in. Feel free to talk to us. We're a friendly environment. Everyone who's within the Martin Gallier project, we've all got links to suicide in some ways, so you're coming into a space where everyone's free and everyone knows the same struggle, and we are a good place to gain help, and we are there accessible on the high street if anyone needs us.
Just mention where you are.
57 New Chester Road in New Ferry.
I thank you for being so honest about your own journeys as well, the Martin Gallier project. Let's bring Matty Kane into the conversation, founder and CEO of the First Person Project. We're hearing about these great organisations that are doing such great work, and we heard from the Iron Men, those men who were speaking about their feelings, their emotions, the journeys that they've been on, and that could be something which for a lot of people has been a difficult conversation to start, but actually as they've warmed into it, they've really found that talking about it has always become part of themselves and their personality. And I guess that's kind of the work that you do as well, finding things within people, that spark, that moment, that thing that they can relate to, that they can be involved in, that changes the path and offers them something a little bit different.
No, definitely. And I mean, the inspiration behind First Person Project is twofold, really. So one is it was a professional journey that I was on, and the other one was a personal journey. And it's interesting, from a personal element, I've always been open about my mental health journey, but it's only recently I've been open about my suicide journey, maybe the last 12 months, and that's because of the influence of the people across the Liverpool City region and beyond, really. But yeah, it takes a lot, and I think it was Jake that you know really moved me, really, with some of the stuff that he was saying. You know, this is a funny guy. He gets up on stage, and the ironic thing is he could have the best night of his life. Everyone's laughing with him, laughing at him in the way that a comedian wants them to, and then he steps off stage and it's just, you know, curtains for Jake. And the way he explained it was profound. It was really good. It was really interesting, very brave.
And I guess as well now, as people turn sort of their own personal journeys into their professional lives as well, there's one thing having sympathy, but empathy is a different thing, isn't it? Where someone comes to you and say, I feel like this, and if you can say to them, I know exactly how you're feeling, that's a game changer, isn't it, in terms of a conversation opener?
Yeah, completely. I mean, we talk, and we've heard today about services talking about mental health and rather than mental illness, and not having you know an exclusive diagnosis. You don't need an exclusive diagnosis to access the service, and no waiting list and stuff, and that's brilliant. That's definitely a step in the right direction. But how about we talk about even more proactive, more further upstream, where and going beyond this idea of opening our doors up for communities, how about communities opening the doors up and we stepping through it and learning about what's abundant and what's strong within our communities versus what's wrong. I mean, I think the thing that stands out for me with all institutions, and this is not a criticism, I think it's just an observation, is that we celebrate the services where you don't need a deficiency to access them. And that's great in one way because we're walking towards the right way, but actually the fact that exists where a service you need to have a deficiency to access it before you can access that service, it just seems a bit too reactive. And I know we're kind of on a journey and it's not about kind of on or off or doing well or not. Everybody is contributing to the picture and we're certainly in a much better position now than we was once upon a time.
And I think so, and I think maybe that's an echo of services, almost clinical services in the past that were reactive. And actually what we've probably heard from as well this evening from the organisations that we've spoken to now and will speak to, they're much more proactive now within their communities. I think there's much more confidence that they'll be received openly and there'll be people who will want to come through the doors, and that's something we should embrace and continue to push, isn't it? That door has been nudged ajar, let's continue to push it open.
No, absolutely, and organisations like the Life Rooms, they've been doing excellent work across the region for many years, and I mean all the organisations we've heard from. I think that the next step after the social prescription model is this idea where we know that there's strengths, assets within our communities, and we have to figure out ways as services to access these things, because yes, you know, suicide is a huge problem. Everyone is preventable. It is a tragedy, and there is a need for mental health services still. Of course there is. But if we talk about the kind of the stat about 1 in 4 people have a mental health problem, well, 3 in 4 don't. So why aren't we looking at as well? Why aren't we looking at, well, what is it what are the strengths and what are the assets that these people have, and learning from that? How can we access that untapped nectar resource?
Let's bring Lily Spenlove into the conversation. Age is not something, again, that we've mentioned, although people are on journeys. The Lee Cooper Foundation set up, because of tragic reasons, the death of a friend of yours. Actually, there's an episode, I'll put a signpost to it on so people can hear the journey behind it. But you as an organisation were set up as an organisation for young people, by young people, and you're getting a little bit older now.
Yeah, initially we were by teenagers, for teenagers, so we had to rebrand, and now we are by young people, for young people.
But just generationally, you're in a generation now which is talking about mental health in a different way, isn't it, than generations who've gone before?
Yeah, I think now it is the power of conversation. It's more acceptable now to sit down and have a conversation about your mental health, and I think there's so many organisations out there doing amazing work, but the next step is to sort of make people aware of the organisations, and so many are here today and so many are here local to everyone else, and I think it's a very clear line. You either know about the organisations or you don't, and I think that's one thing that we're big on, because we're based in Prescott now, which is a small area, but there is a lot of brilliant work going on, so we do try to highlight it. And if young people come to us and we can't directly support some services that they do need, then organisations like ourselves, we'll have a good knowledge of people who we can signpost to. And I think that goes for having conversations with friends and family. You aren't expected to have all the answers, so just by opening up and admitting that you need a bit of support, they can share their knowledge and what they know that's available.
And actually good that events like this can mean that we can make those connections, and if your service can't support, then actually one down the road, maybe one of the organisations here today can make that connection. That's really important, isn't it? Because not everyone's an expert in all things, but being able to refer on, bring in other organisations can make a big difference and keep people within communities.
Yeah, and it's offering people a network of support too, because there's 7 evenings in a week, and when you are going through a tough time and when you have left school or you've left your place of work and you are going home, although to some it might seem like a couple of hours at home, when you're in the darkest moments of your life, that feels like days just within the one day. So I think to have more opportunities that young people and people of all ages can access more often, that's one thing that we're really big on, because we now have our own hub, so we are able to offer more support more often now, and it is a home away from home for our young people where they can come whenever they feel they need to.
Tell us about your new home.
Yeah, so our new home literally is, we call it the hub, but the layout when you come and see it, it literally is just a home away from home. So we do have services running most nights now, but it is just a place where young people can come through the door. They can just knock on, and if they want to come in and just sit down and have a chat with you, then they can. We now offer peer support up to clinical intervention now, so we do sort of cover different severities and intensities of support, which is
an honour to be able to do, because I think a lot of young people feel as though they need to be at crisis point to access support, but at the Lee Cooper Foundation you don't need a diagnosis, you don't need to have prolonged feelings of sadness. If you're having a bad day, then you can just come and turn up.
Brilliant stuff. And when I first met you, I thought that there's something about this group of individuals that means that this is going to stick. This wasn't like a school project. That this was something which meant something, and the investment in it from you is a credit to you and all the people who've been involved as well. Are you coming on board? I'm going to come and stand a little bit closer.
I'm Katie from Little Sunshine. I work in children's mental health, so I work in schools. I do self-esteem programs, yoga, meditation. I believe that children should be helped from a young age. If we're giving them lifelong tools, and this should benefit them for the rest of their life, really. I believe that we should be doing it from the age of 3, doing mindfulness, meditation, things like that. So.
Absolutely, and actually it brings us sort of full circle, isn't it, to that conversation around stigma. If a young person is grown up thinking about their mental health, I know when I sit around with my kids at the table, I've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I say to them every mealtime, how are we feeling today, marks out of 10? And that's not for me to psychoanalyse them, that's for me to get them to think about how are they feeling. If it's a low score, well, what is it? Are you feeling tired today? Did you fall out with somebody at school? So at least it gets them onto that point. And then I heard actually a psychologist say that was something that was really positive. I was like, right, I'm going to carry on doing that and see if I can sort of maintain that as well.
Getting children to talk about their emotions and having that open space, because when I was younger, they didn't have that in school. So it's about giving them opportunities to speak out when they're young.
Absolutely. Thank you once again to all the organisations down here this week. A round of applause for those fantastic organisations. James's Place, the Lee Cooper Foundation, we heard from the Martin Gallier Project, the Life Rooms as well, and 1,000,001 different places in between. We'll put postings to all the different groups on the Mental Health Monday podcast page, and there'll be individual tags on the social media as well. So we'll get everybody. Head to radiocity.co.uk. I'll put a master page on there as well, where you can find out links to all the different organisations and hear from some of those organisations that we heard from as part of last week's show. It's been great doing 2 live editions of Mental Health Monday live on the streets of Crosby. We had our Iron Men last week. We say thank you to the real Iron Men, the actual Iron Men, for being such great hosts as well. The sun is about to set in the sky. It looks absolutely glorious, so we've just got time for a team photo. For now, though, we'll say wish you all the very best, and check out next week's edition of Mental Health Monday. More than 200 previous editions are also available to download. They're absolutely free. Thank you once again for joining us on Mental Health Monday.
And just once again, a massive thank you to those organisations who took part, and to our Iron Men as well. That wraps up this week's edition of Mental Health Monday. A full signposting will be on the webpage, but also, of course, you can find local services where you are at the Hub of Hope, hubofhope.co.uk. If you've shared any of the images, the videos that you've seen of our Iron Men project, then thank you. We really appreciate that. Please continue to tell people you've been listening to Mental Health Monday, and there are more than 200 previous episodes which you can listen to absolutely free. There may be some which are absolutely up your street. There may be others that feel less relevant, but they may be relevant to other people, and I think it's all about just continuing this journey. It's a real passion project of mine, and one which will continue. Thank you for downloading, thank you for listening, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate you joining me. You can get involved on Twitter. I am at Mr. Mick Coyle. If you want to get involved there, there's also the Mental Health Monday Facebook group. There's an email link to me in my Twitter feed account. Okay, thank you very much for checking us out. More Mental Health Monday next week.